What is a beautiful life but a series of adventures? And a motorcycle ride, every time you get on one, is another adventure. And I know big adventures, sometimes you feel you need big bikes, right? And if you can put your ego aside, big bikes traditionally meant sport bikes. But if you look at the Indian context, there's something that's a better fit for really big adventures. And we are here to meet a legend. Honda's Africa Twin is the old nameplate that earned its reputation through all the adventures at the Paris-Dakar, the toughest off-road race in the world. And the nameplate is here on a spanking new high-tech motorcycle, a very serious motorcycle when it comes to off-road, but it can do a lot more than that. Let's see what it's really capable of. And now finally it's time to get up close to the Africa Twin, and like all adventure bikes, when you look at it, it seems quite intimidating, doesn't it? And the international spec bike has a seat height of 870 mm. That would be right up at my eyeballs. Honestly, that's what it would feel like anyways. But the India spec bike has the lowest seat setting of 820 millimeters. So even shorties like me can hop on board. But it has a curb weight of 245 kilograms. So it isn't a lightweight either. Thankfully, you can't feel much of it while on the move. Off-road ability, it's not been compromised. You have 250 millimeters of ground clearance. The front fork is fully adjustable with 230 millimeters of travel, and it holds a massive 21-inch front wheel. The rear is an 18-inch. This is the same setup as Honda's Dakar Racer, the CRF 450 Rally. And of course, you do get spoke wheels and a fully adjustable monoshock at the rear as well. It also has 220 millimeters of suspension travel at the rear. At the heart of it, this Honda has a simple parallel twin engine with a single overhead cam. And this heart beats a bit differently. Now the legendary Africa Twin used to have a V-twin engine. The all-new motorcycle uses a parallel twin. This helps make the engine more compact and lets the bike be designed better as well. But interestingly, what Honda has done is given this engine a 270-degree crank. What that basically means is a parallel twin engine that should give the power delivery characteristics and the sound of a V-twin. But actually the really big talking point on this Africa Twin that's come to India is going to be its dual clutch transmission. The 6-speed transmission is a high-tech piece of kit. It uses 2 clutches to make sure progress is smooth and seamless. So you can ride around on the Africa Twin much like you would on an Activa. Just twist the throttle and go. So yes, it simplifies things, but it also complicates them. Now usually on a motorcycle, the left hand has to handle a few tasks, the clutch being one which isn't there here on the Africa Twin. But that aside, you'd still have to deal with the pass flash switch, the indicators and the horn. But when you look at the left hand console on the Africa Twin, the feeling that you get when you start using it is like being in algebra class back in school. Here on the left hand side console, you also have toggles for the on-screen menus, which is fine, but there is trouble. The upshift switch is where the pass flash would be, and right next to that is the switch for the traction control. You better not confuse the two. And where the horn would be is where you have the downshift button. The upside to all of this is you can use this like a manual motorcycle very easily. Even in drive mode, you can shift up and down the gears when you need to change pace. Now for old school guys like me, it will take some time to get used to it. And even then, once you do, I'll admit everything else will seem so old-fashioned. But I also have to admit, if I can get the hang of this really quickly, I think I'd be fit to fly a helicopter as well.
But for now, let's stick to the Africa Twin and do what Africa Twins are meant to do: go off-road.
Before we do that, how do you get going? Well, you start the engine and then all you have to do is press D. Now for off-road conditions, you also turn on the G mode, which is the gravel mode. This tightens the connection between the right wrist and the rear wheel. Stand up and ride and the Africa Twin feels oh so right. This Honda felt surprisingly easy to steer in the mud. There's a massive 86 degrees of steering movement lock to lock, so you can turn it easily as well. There's also an off-road mode for the ABS, which switches off ABS for the rear wheel. Incredibly, even with the ABS switched on, the brakes didn't feel juddery or intrusive even in these slushy conditions. However, the Africa Twin just does feel a little front heavy, and this could be down to the extra 13 kilos it carries because of the dual clutch transmission.
Now when you go off-road, this motorcycle just comes alive. You know it's on its home turf. It starts to feel surprisingly agile and it inspires confidence in the rider.
Part of the credit for that also goes to the drivetrain.
The engine with that 270-degree crank actually gives you the kind of power delivery you'd expect from a V-twin, which means you've got plenty of torque right from low RPMs, which lets you power out of the mucky stuff. And on top of that, with the dual clutch transmission, you actually don't have to make shifts, so all you have to do is focus on your lines.
Right, so the dual clutch gearbox shifted smoothly and quickly, so the going was fluid. You have more aggressive gearbox modes if you want, but we didn't want to get too aggressive.
Agreed, we didn't really push that hard or go that far, but we had our reasons. In the accessory list, you do get a crash guard that goes on here and protects the bike, which this doesn't. But the bigger reason really was the conditions, wet and slushy, in which these road bias tires just do not perform. We'd want proper knobby tires for this on the accessory list. Sadly, that's not on offer as of now. But for now, we're going to switch focus to how the Africa Twin performs on the long road home, because a lot of people are interested in touring. And to check that out, we decided to ride the Africa Twin from Udaipur to Pune.
So we went from Udaipur to Vadodara, Surat, Valsad, Virar, Thane, Lonavala and finally Pune, all in a day. So, how was it?
After a near 900-kilometer ride done in a day, the biggest thought in my mind when I got home was, where do I go out for dinner? Basically, I wasn't tired, and there are a couple of very good reasons for that. First and foremost, the ergonomics. The seating position felt damn near perfect, and one of the big things that helped make that journey shorter was the wind protection. This screen blows a big hole in front of you and keeps the wind right off you, which means you can cover lots of kilometers without feeling tired.
One pain point was the seat. It felt a bit too firm. Also, once the windscreen collected some muck, looking at the road up ahead got a bit fuzzy.
Taller riders though would have a bit of an issue because this windscreen isn't adjustable. So it's fixed here, so you would get a bit of a wind blast. But for shorter riders like me, this was just fine.
The other reason is the engine. With just 88 PS, it's no rocket ship. And in our tests, the Africa Twin went from 0 to 100 in about 4.88 seconds, which is a bit slower than, say, a Kawasaki Z650. In the normal drive mode, the engine feels quite lazy and is perfect for cruising. But if you want to make quick progress, it's best to use the sports modes that are offered for the gearbox.
Sure, this isn't an engine that will excite you, but what it does very well is chew kilometers. It feels tireless hour after hour, and along with a 19-liter fuel tank, you have great tank range as well.
In terms of fuel efficiency, you get 23.8 kilometers per liter on the highway while cruising at the 100 kmph mark, which means you have a tank range of over 400 kilometers. In the city, the fuel efficiency figure drops to 21.1 kmpl, which is very reasonable. But what makes it absolutely special in the city is that there is no clutch to tire you, no matter how dense the traffic. You could genuinely spend a lot of time commuting in the city on the Africa Twin. And let's not forget, it has a super tight turning radius as well.
Now, big ADVs of today have to be usable in the city, which this Africa Twin very much is. And along with that, they also have to dish out the excitement when you find a set of corners.
First, the handling. The Twin can be cranked over and hard. Just give the bar a push and it drops down. It can be hustled through the S's as well. The twin pedal brakes can slow it down rapidly, but feel is a little lacking. The big disappointment though were the tires. The Dunlops just don't inspire confidence and tended to chatter. Also, even in the sportiest mode for the gearbox, which is S3, it didn't hold revs for very long. So it shifted up as we were sweeping from one corner to the next. In S3, the gearbox tends to be sporty, shifting down gears when you hit the brakes. But we do wish it was more aggressive. So for roads like this, it's best to stick to the manual mode.
Now, before we wrap up, a small request. Honda, could you please bring the manual version? Because for some of us, the lighter motorcycle with a very direct control that we're used to would just make so much sense. But let's put that aside and look at what we have on offer here right now. And we'd like to say that we could nitpick about it. In its segment, it won't be the most powerful, it won't be the most exciting motorcycle. It definitely isn't the lightest either. But when you look at the entire package, what you find is that it has enough. It has everything you really need in just the right proportion so that you can do just about anything with it. Swap a set of tires and wander as far as you'd want. And then there's the dual clutch transmission. A bit of a sticking point for some of us, yes, but owners, once they get used to it, will find a lot of value in it and will end up using their motorcycles more because of it. And it will also encourage newer riders to ride their motorcycles more and even wander off-road because of the convenience that it offers. And then when you look at the price that the Africa Twin is offered at, it ends up looking like the motorcycle to have if you like your adventures a little wild.